Welcome to another episode of our personal empowerment premium audio series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Hi, I'm Michael Benner.
And I'm Steve Snyder, and our program today is entitled Doubt. And we put a question mark at the end because, after all, isn't that what doubt's all about? You know, there's different kinds of doubt. There's sort of like a good doubt and a bad doubt. A good doubt is like, should I blindly trust this guy who's trying to sell me this thing? That's a good doubt. And then there's that bad doubt, kind of like, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Am I enough? You know, doubt is a questioning we have in our mind, actually sort of between our minds in a way, and sometimes between our mind and our heart. Doubt is a very, very valuable asset to us when we use it appropriately.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary to decision-making processes. I mean, if you never had doubt, you're either a genius or a fool, and maybe a little bit of both. It's a good idea to be skeptical, to worry. I'm thinking of a quotation that's often attributed to Buddha himself, and you never really know because, like Jesus, Buddha never wrote anything down himself, but it's said that he told his followers not to really believe anyone or anything, not religious books and not preachers or teachers, not the equivalent of the news media or people just because they're an authority, not to believe anything unless it rings true for you in your mind and your heart. And I'm paraphrasing, but the way it's usually described, the emphasis is on the heart. And I think one of the doubts that we need to talk about right here at the top is, well, which of these two do I listen to? I can think of a half a dozen songs right off the top of my head where the theme of the song, the lyric, is do I trust my thoughts or my feelings, my head or my heart? And as Steve said, the mind in and of itself is filled with doubt. We have all kinds of arguments with ourselves. You think two different things that may be opposite or they may just be different in some regard, and you're confused. And then you say, well, which one has more merit? Which one feels more correct? And so you end up going to the heart. We're going to talk a little bit about this and how to be discerning in this regard. What is the difference between the head and the heart? Which is more reliable? Which is more trustworthy, for that matter?
Yeah, actually, the best answer is both working together, you know, when you can create a state where that can happen. When you're asleep, you can't do that. You know, when you're asleep, you're just processing information and doing stuff. You're not really doubting. You're not really deciding. You're somehow, on some level, putting things together. But when we move into an awake state, then we have this process of thinking that goes on. Now, it goes on a lot of different levels. There's the primary thought we have when we choose to think a thought, the focused thought, the directed thought, the intended thought. I'm thinking about something that I want to be thinking about, okay? And sometimes that thought will include doubt. Sometimes I come to a logical place of determining the factors and realizing that there's reason for skepticism here. There's reason for not jumping feet first into this thing. You know, there's reason to have some doubt. Other times, I'm going along with my intended thought, you know, just clear that this seems like the right thing to do, and then all of a sudden, there's this other voice. This comes from somewhere else that goes, wait a minute, I don't know about this. You didn't plan on having that thought. That just popped out of somewhere in your mind. And that's a different kind of doubt. So there's the doubt that logic leads you to, and there's the other kind of doubt that comes from that other form of intelligence, often called intuition.
Yeah, we have these discussions with ourselves, these interior dialogues. And, you know, aside from you and I, Steve, I don't, and my wife and your wife and a handful of people around us who are willing to have these kinds of discussions, I don't think most people talk much about the conflicts that are going on, like that natural tendency to argue with yourself. As Steve said, you may have an intended thought, even if it contains some doubt in and of itself, but then there's a part of you that answers back and isn't so sure. We even have a phrase for it. People will sometimes say, well, wait a minute, on second thought, or on the other hand. But aside from those figures of speech.
It was against my better judgment.
There's another one, yeah. That's sort of after the fact.
Yeah, right.
Now you've got some proof. I knew I should have done that. I knew. Well, it's easy to know on Monday morning how to run the game. So I guess what I'm saying is it's interesting, intriguing to me how little discussion there is about what this says about who we are and what motivates us, if so much of what's going on in our head is this back and forth. In fact, I think many of the disagreements or arguments or testy conversation that couples have in relationship is really an acting out of an argument that you've already got going on inside your head. And it's like, without saying as much to your spouse, what you're saying is, wait a minute, don't pile on. I've already got a voice in my head that's making that argument. I just don't know which of these is me.
Yeah, if that wasn't going on inside of you, when they brought it up, it wouldn't be such a big deal. You wouldn't be like so sensitive to it,
or defensive,
about it. Yeah, and that's what happens. We do manifest the arguments that are going on inside our head with the people closest to us, so we have a way of working them out in the real world. And if we were really clear, on one side of the argument or the other side of the argument, if we didn't have any doubt, then there wouldn't be any issue going on. We stand our ground, right or wrong. If we're without doubt, there's something really wonderful on some level about, being so sure of yourself, you have absolutely no doubt. But it also is really one of the most dangerous things in the world to just believe something through blind faith. Just because somebody said so, or just because it's an accepted norm, to just totally believe that and not, what would we call it in the 60s? Question authority. That like, let's wait a minute now. Let's take who said that? Where did that come from? Why is that? Is that still true? Maybe it was true once. Is it still true? That kind of like not totally believing just because it always was kind of believing, that kind of doubt is really what causes civilizations to grow, like just not accepting the way it always has been just because it always has been that way. That kind of doubt. That's the kind of doubt is the seed of creativity. That's the kind of doubt that's the seed of making, inventing new things and pushing the boundaries and going beyond. But the most crippling kind of doubt is the kind that you never really talk about with anybody else except maybe your therapist. The kind of doubt that's going, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Do I deserve? The stuff that really makes up the core of what low self-esteem is all about. Low self-esteem is really essentially self-doubt, not believing in yourself, not thinking you're good enough or whatever enough. And that eats away at everything. It causes this pessimism, this unhappiness, even depression comes from. If you were sure you were stupid, it'd be one thing, but you're not. You're doubting, like, am I stupid? Am I smart? And when you're in that confusion place, the brain is confused and confuses confusion with danger, and you feel like you're constantly in danger. Whenever you're feeling that way, whenever you're feeling like self-doubt, like, am I good enough? You're feeling like almost your survival is at stake. Your brain is moving into feeling panicky and anxiety-ridden and tension in the body and anxiety in the gut and confusion in the brain, and all that stress makes us feel like we're really in danger. So doubt, which can be a wonderful thing, moving us away from those pitfalls that we would fall into if we didn't take a look, can be a wonderful thing on one hand, but on the other hand, it can also be one of the most debilitating kind of thoughts that we have.
I think that's a real good point, and I think one of the reasons doubting yourself is at the center or the root of all other kinds of doubt, like if I can't trust myself because I don't really know who I am, then how could I really trust any of the decisions that I make or the goals that I set? So you can see that this is fundamental or primary to all doubt. I think the reason we doubt who we are and our ability to make decisions is nobody's ever really given us a system for knowing the truth about who we really are. And if there are systems out there, they're not that popular or understood or agreed upon. I personally think that the best way to know myself has very little to do with thinking. And yet you heard me say, I personally think that my thoughts are really not the best way to understand who I am. I think the best way to know is through feeling. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, I believe we can think anything. We can think like other people. We can think like ourselves. Our thoughts can be right. Our thoughts can be partially right. Our thoughts can be completely wrong. But most thoughts have to do with comparison. Like memory, a matter of association. You compare this to that as a way of understanding things logically or deductively. You take things away to see what remains. Well, that works for many things. I mean, even our math and our science is fundamentally logical because it's deductive. It's like, well, let's take away everything that's irrelevant or wrong and see what we're left with. We'll factor the problem like algebra. But when it comes to knowing yourself, consider that you're incomparable. You have fingerprint evidence and DNA proof, I would argue, that there's nobody exactly like you. So to use your thoughts to compare yourself to other people, and I think that's what judging others is about, a backward way of trying to deduce something about yourself. Well, I'm not that. I'm not this guy over here. I'm better than this person over there, and I'm reading the news and deciding I'm better off than a lot of these people in here, and sort of deducing that I must be the one that remains. And well, it doesn't really tell you very much about yourself at all. You're not comparable. You're incomparable, and therefore it seems we'd need a second way of knowing ourselves to eliminate most of the doubt, if not all of it. Again, I think, like Steve said, a little bit of doubt is always a good idea. But if we could arrive at a basic understanding of who we are through our feelings, through our emotions, which of course will lead to a thought stream, but nevertheless, what if you are what you care about? What if you are what's important to you in terms of deep core feelings? What if you are what you love? What if you are that you love? Your capacity to love. So what do you love to do? What do you care about? What are you interested in? I'd suggest that reveals a lot more about who you are and will eliminate a lot of doubt in your life as you come to understand your incomparable, unique individuality through your emotional nature.
It's really fascinating because people try to solve emotional problems with logic, and you can't do that. Like, for example, maybe the biggest problem in the human world is people not knowing what they want. You know, that's a huge problem. People try and figure out what they want, but you can't figure out what you want because it's not a logical question. It's what does my heart desire? It's an emotional question. So when you have doubt, like about that, like what do I want? People have a lot of doubt about not knowing what they want. So what we need to do in those scenarios is we need to get out of stress, because then we don't come up with anything creative or inventive. We need to relax and take a deep breath or two, and then start with, when we don't know what to do, we're sort of like in that frustrated, we don't know what to do thing, start with the basic question, what do I want? Now, I think even better is the question, what do I want the most? Because that really gives you a clear bullseye to shoot for. What do I want the most? And if it's clear that the problem is you don't know what you want. Now, sometimes the problem isn't that. Sometimes you do know what you want. You just don't know how to get there. You don't know what to do to create that thing that you want happening in your life. And in that case, you can use some logic. You can figure out ways. You can, like, what's the next step? But what you really want to do in that scenario is to imagine yourself there. Start with the end in mind. Visualize the results that you want to create. Give your mind a clear idea of that's the target. It'll figure out ways to get there. But more important is it wants to be free of doubt of where you're going. If you know what you want, then let your mind be absolutely free of doubt. That's where I want to end up. I don't know how I'm going to get there yet, but that's where I want to end up. So sometimes the problem is I don't know what I want. Sometimes the problem is I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it. And sometimes it just seems like it's one of those problems, but it really isn't either of those problems. Sometimes it's really, there's a hurt inside of me that I need to heal. There's something painful happening. This situation's bringing up some memories or some embarrassment or shame, or something's happening inside of me that feels icky, when this happens. And it's really not based on I don't know what I want. It's really not based on I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it. It's just there's a hurt that needs to be healed. So to me, when you have doubt, one of the first things you want to do is figure that out. You close your eyes, you take a deep breath, you relax a bit, and you ask yourself, is this a situation where I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it? Or is it a situation where I don't know what I want? Or is it a situation where it really is about a hurt, something wounded inside of me that I really need to address and heal? That's the first place to go, I think, to alleviate the doubt.
Is it a problem to be solved or a hurt to be healed? That's really profound if you think about it. And where have you ever heard that presented before? So this may be a brand new idea. Now, we are real clear about the fact that thoughts and feelings cannot ultimately be separated any more than you could separate any other function of self. We're one body, we're one mind, we're one heart. We have many organs, we have millions or billions of cells, and yet there's a harmony going on. There's some unification within who we are. So every thought that you have will not only be born of feelings to some extent, but will then impact the emotional nature, which will then give rise to another set of thoughts, which will then impact how you feel. It's sort of like a ping pong game.
Except it's not, it's like thought, feeling, thought, feeling, thought. Sometimes there's three thoughts in a row and then a feeling, but it's a back and forth kind of ping pong game.
Well, I think this is really a revolutionary concept, that we've got problems to be solved and we've got hurts to be healed. And a lot of what people call feelings are really thoughts about their feelings. I mean, we even have doubt about whether this is a thought or a feeling. We're not exposed to a lot of this, right? You could take a psychology class, but as Steve said a few weeks ago, a lot of that, at least in our day, was running rats through mazes. You don't really get to learn about yourself in psychology. I think a lot of people sign up for a psych class hoping they'll figure themselves out at least a little bit, and you never really do. You read all these abstractions about abnormal psych, and lots of us really want to understand ourselves better, and we just don't know how to do that. Well, I'm going to propose, and I'm willing to be flexible on this because I have a little bit of doubt about it, that thoughts are essentially objective and that are a form of intelligence that's designed to tell you about the world around you through, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of comparison and elimination, trial and error, deduction. That's what logic tends to be. Feelings, on the other hand, the emotional nature, I'm going to suggest, are much more subjective, much more personal. And so here's a second intelligence. I don't want to call it a backup intelligence. It may be primary to thinking. Before we could think, we were able to feel. Before we were logical, before we had language, as little babies, and who knows, maybe as prehistoric, primitive beings, we relied more upon our emotional nature. But what do? We try to use reason to understand our emotions. And it's the wrong key, because emotions often are unreasonable. So to attempt to reason your way through an understanding or to an understanding of your emotional nature and why you feel the way you feel is just using the wrong key to unlock the door. It's not going to work. What is emotional intelligence then? How do we discern our feelings? And I think this is the answer many people are looking for. Even if they get to the place that Steve took us, is it a problem to be solved, suggesting logic and reasoning, rational thought, or is it a hurt to be healed? Well, I think the language of the emotional nature, which again is very personal, as opposed to thoughts, which are more objective, this is my argument, I think the secret is intuition. which is a very non-logical process. I won't say it's illogical, but it is non-logical. Intuition goes specific to general, whereas logic tends to break things down from general to specific. So if you have a bunch of details and you want to intuit or induce some overarching concept, you have to sort of relax and breathe and sit back and wait for your intuition to speak to you. That's very different from logic. And yet, how else are you going to approach the hurt that needs to be healed? And again, this is fundamental because Steve's already said, how could you know what to do if you don't know what you want? And both sentences, what should I do and what do I want, have the question of, hey, who is this I that's doing the asking? I think you are the hurt to be healed. You are how you feel and what you care about. You are what you love more than what you think. Again, you've been trained in school to think this way or think that way. You can think like other people. Your thoughts can be right or wrong. How could you have a wrong feeling? This would eliminate doubt, would it not? The question is, how do I access my feelings? Don't my thoughts often get in the way? Yeah, and you know the answer to that. If you've been listening to this series, it's a matter of going to paradise. It's a matter of relaxing and eliminating or reducing drastically stress and anxiety carried as muscular tension. You feel safe, you breathe, you relax, and the mind opens. And logic is still here. You can still be mentally reasonable, but here comes this emotional nature, comes online. And now you can understand the hurt to be healed. And you can understand the nature of the self and eliminate, I think, in this way, a whole lot of the doubt.
So when in doubt, stop, go to paradise, get out of the stress, and then take a look at this basic question. Is it a problem to be solved or a hurt to be healed? And if it is, in fact, a hurt to be healed, then your next step is to ask, what's the hurt that needs to be healed? And again, use intuition to listen for the answer. You can't figure out your emotional nature. You can't deduce the answer to the question about your emotions, but you do know the answers. The only place the answer could possibly be is in you. So what you have to do is be quiet and listen. Now, this is not really thinking as we think of thinking. Ask yourself a question. I want to know what's the hurt inside of me that needs to be healed. Something feels like it hurts. I want to know what that is. And you just listen for the answer. Now, the answer may come in pictures, or it might come in words, or it might come in just sensations, or you might just know, that aha kind of experience. But that's not really thinking. It's certainly not directed, purposeful thinking. You're not choosing to have those thoughts. You're just asking for this to come from you or through you. So that kind of thinking is really a communication from the higher self, not from the ego, not from the scared nature, not from the dangerous part of the mind, but the part of the mind that feels safe, saying, this is what's real. This is what's true. Because, again, feelings, as Michael said, can't be really wrong. If you feel angry, guess what? You're angry. You could be angry for the wrong reason. Somebody could have lied to you, and you're angry because you thought something happened that never actually happened.
Or what you think about the feeling could be a misinterpretation.
Absolutely. But the feeling is the feeling. It is what it is. So, it's not really like feelings or thoughts. It's feelings and thoughts, but it's never just thoughts, without the feelings. Because when you do what's logical, but it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good, doesn't make your heart go pity-patter, you're not going to enjoy it. Let's say the question is, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm in a bad job, or I'm bored with this job. I want to do something different. Now I know what I want. I want a better job. I don't know how to get it, but I do know I want a better job. Do I know what that job is? Oh, no. Well, maybe I really don't know what I want. Maybe I need to be more specific about what I want. So once again, I ask intuition to help me, because the job I'm looking for isn't the one that's necessarily the logically best choice for me. It's the one that makes my heart sing. It's the one that I'm most passionate about, unless that isn't sensible. So you can't just eliminate the thoughts. If the heart says, oh, I want to be a world-class baseball player, I want to be the second baseman for the Dodgers, and I'm 60 years old and I'm not very good at baseball, this is not, I don't care what my heart's saying, You've got to filter it through your mind. But you need to go from the heart and then through the mind, because to find out what you want, you can't figure out what you want and hope to excite yourself about it. What you need to do is find out what excites you. And that kind of communication with self is one of the keys through intuition, eliminating doubt. Ask yourself, let the answer come. The first thing that pops into your mind is intuition. Before you have a chance to think, before there's any chance for the brain to cognate, this stuff just pops into your head. That's what intuition is. And if you can't tell what was the first thing that popped into your mind, then the more you relax, the more that other stuff just seems to go away. Those thoughts and those feelings, they bounce and ping pong back and forth, thought, feeling, thought, feeling. That stuff goes away, and you're left with just one, and that one was the original one, the one that really could be labeled intuition, the heart mind speaking from your core about what you want the most.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to grade yourself here. If you're a regular listener of the Finding Yourself in Paradise series, if you've been with us for a while, check yourself on this. Are you anticipating where we're going to go with this next? Are you wondering when we're going to bring up fear and love? I've talked a little about love, but I think what I'd like to go to next is the idea of what supports the hurt. Problem to be solved or hurt to be healed? We're saying there's a back and forth, but Steve just suggested there's something really primary about feelings, right? Well, it's really important that we understand that everything that hurts has at its roots an element of fear, which is, really another word for doubt, isn't it? You could describe it as doubt, but I'm afraid of what I don't know. In other words, confusion, lack of awareness, things unknown, that's what fear is. Ultimately, all fear is fear of the unknown. Even the fear of clear and present danger is more about what you do not know about the danger than anything that's obvious. So that's what fear is, things unknown, and that's what supports hurt. Things hurt emotionally when you do not understand them. So does that mean the antidote to fear, love, is also an antidote to confusion and a lack of awareness? Does that mean love is understanding? Does that mean understanding is love? Yeah, they really are synonyms. Fear and ignorance have a relationship that is like a vicious cycle that'll pull you down, each feeding the other. Whatever frightens you is confusing, and whatever you don't understand or are not aware of compounds the fear, which makes you more confused and more anxious and more ignorant and more afraid. Whatever words you want to use, around and around it goes, a vicious cycle pulling you down. Well, love's relationship to fear is the same as understanding's relationship to ignorance. Don't you see how love and understanding is similar, except it's a beautiful upward spiral where understanding promotes peace and contentment and relaxation. Oh, everything's okay now. I understand. That's called love. Not romantic love, not eros, but inner peace, that kind of love and contentment, which promotes, interestingly, understanding, which brings about more love and more understanding. And this is an upward spiral. This refines and improves and redeems. So to know that the hurt that needs to be healed is rooted in fear means I need to understand it. And we attempt to use the mind, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it'll help and bring you part of the way. One of the important things that I've learned about the nature of learning itself is that our schooling has taught us that basically there's only one right answer to things, and in the real world that's just not true. Or that the first right answer must be the only right answer, or the best right answer, and again, in the real world, that's not true. The first right answer is often not the best right answer. It works, but it's not elegant, right? There are better right answers out there. And again, they don't teach us that in school, not even at the college or graduate school level, unless you're a philosophy major or an attorney. I remember hearing our Buckminster Fuller speak about this once, and he gave this example about being on the Titanic or a ship that sinks at sea, and all the lifeboats are used up, and you're in the water, and here comes a grand piano, and you scramble up on the grand piano, and it keeps you above water, and eventually you're saved by a lifeboat. Well, that doesn't mean that we should design all of our lifeboats then in the shape of grand pianos. It was a right answer. It saved your life, but it's not very elegant. It's not very efficient. Take a look at the right answers in your life and ask yourself, are these the only right answers? Are they the best right answers? Have I become complacent by doing things as I've always done them because, well, it works, and therefore I know the right answer? Isn't that what they taught me in school? I got the answer right. Yeah, but because of the nature of schooling, did they ever look at the process of how you arrived at that answer? Is there really deep understanding? Because that's what it takes. Deep understanding, a quality of love, to eliminate the fear, the hurt, and the doubt. That's our topic today.
So Michael was talking about these upward spirals of thought and these downward spirals of thought. And, no matter what you think, you can have either one of those. You could have all kinds of positive thoughts and still have a downward spiral if every thought you have, you doubt. Every time you think, I think I can do it. No, I really don't think I'm not good. I think I can do it. And then this sinking feeling inside is, no, I'm not. So it's not the thought that causes the spiral. It's your response to the thoughts, your reaction. It's what you do with the thought. And if all you do with the thought is like discard it or, think it's not enough, doubt it, you take away all its power. In the other way, you could have all negative thoughts coming up like, oh, I'm never going to make it. And then I'm glad I got that out of my system. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, yeah, I am. You can take a negative thought stream and say no to those negative thoughts and turn it into a positive spiral, because it really is at the core about the way we feel about what we think. If I really like the positive thoughts I'm having, then I'll be optimistic. If I really don't like the positive thoughts I'm having, then I'll be pessimistic. If I really like the negative thoughts I'm having, then I'll be a pessimist. If I really don't like the positive thoughts I'm having, I'll be a pessimist. It doesn't matter which thoughts. Either thoughts can cause either kind of spiral. It's the feelings you have about those thoughts. So this is where we say thoughts can be right and or wrong, but feelings just are. And the more we slow down, the more we get out of stress, the more we relax and unwind, the clearer our feelings become to us. And that's really what we're saying here, that when in doubt, don't act out. Instead, relax, unwind, release, and move to paradise. And then you can get in touch with the interplay, the gentle interplay between thoughts and feelings. There's fear thoughts and there's love thoughts. And, fear thoughts are there to protect you. Ego-based thoughts are there to protect you. They're there to move you away from what you don't want. But really, that's not heading you necessarily toward what you do want. You've got to calm the mind so that you have the love thoughts, which, they're much harder to hear because they're whispering. The fear thoughts are yelling and screaming in your ear. The love thoughts are, the higher self is sort of whispering. And so you have to quiet your mind to hear that higher self, which is moving you toward what you love, toward what you do want, and listens to the heart. The higher self connects with the heart and its thoughts and feelings working together. Oftentimes the ego is just afraid and just moving away from what it is really that you ought to be moving toward just because of all this fear. So quieting the mind, it all becomes much more clear.
And to follow up on that, if you do doubt who you are and you wonder whether you deserve or merit the success, whether you really can pull it off, many people end up, not really consciously aware of the process, but nevertheless, they end up substituting for making decisions and setting goals a process of avoiding what they don't want. Because they're using the mind instead of the intuition. They're using the mental nature to eliminate all these possibilities, and they still don't know what they want, but they know all these things they've eliminated, and so goals for many people is avoiding what they don't want. The problem is the mind is wired to move you toward whatever you think about. So if you focus on what you don't want, you end up getting it. Now, again, a very simple law of mind, Psych 101. How many people do you think know that? You see, you do now. Maybe you did before you heard this program, but that makes you a pretty exceptional person. Most people do not understand the literal nature of cause and effect, that you reap what you sow. Steve said earlier, begin with the end in mind, the idea that the goal is a seed. The goal is where you begin to create. And the idea of, well, I'm going to put my attention on how to get to some vague place and I'll decide as I get closer, means what you're going to create is a vague outcome. And then people say, well, this is very unsatisfying. What did I do wrong? I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. You attained exactly what you had imagined, a vague, hazy, confused outcome, right? So, again, how do I know what to do? Know what you want. How do I know what I want? Become familiar with who you are. That's a process of thought and feeling that at its root requires you not only to be logical and reasonable and intelligent mentally, but to develop your emotional intelligence to know thyself.
Yeah, if you doubt the facts, then you can go to, Google and find them out. But if you doubt your feelings, then the only place you can go to figure that out is inside of you. And that's where we're going right now, inside of you. And inside of me and inside of Michael, the place that we call paradise, a state of narrow awake, the flow, the zone, technically the alpha brainwave state. Those that have been here before on the ride, we call this an audio journey. So get comfortable wherever you are, sitting or lying down, whatever works for you. If this is an appropriate time, close your eyes. Start by letting your brain know you're incredibly safe as you close your eyes and take a really deep, deep breath. That deep breath lets the mind know that everything's just fine. Hold at the peak, and as you release, start imagining this paradise, this place of perfect peace. And let your tension release, and your anxiety fade, and your confusion all disappear. And your body becomes relaxed, and your emotions quite calm, and your mind focused and clear. And most definitely here.
As you relax and reflect, as you turn within and ponder the nature of doubt, think of it as a good thing, rather than a negative, I don't know, I wish I do, what failure of mine is this? Think of it as a way of reminding yourself to remain open and curious, of always wanting to know more. And allow this to be now not merely a decision you make with your mind, but a feeling that you feel somatically, that is, down in your body. Move your awareness from your head, where most people reside, down past the shoulders, into the rib cage, maybe all the way down into the tummy, somewhere between the abdomen and the heart. And feel around in the core of your being for how it feels to doubt. And remind yourself that the word doubt may sound negative, but it also could be wonder. Allow yourself to be filled with wonder, which would be wonderful. Doubt can be wonderful. Part of a process of growing and expanding and always wanting to know more, of looking directly at what confuses you, even what hurts you, as a way of knowing yourself based on how you feel. And in this wonderful place, open your intuition. Simply allow the ideas to effervesce, to bubble up into your awareness. Little ideas and curiosities. I wonder what's on the other side over there. I wonder why. I wonder who. When, how, and especially why. I wonder why. Cultivate the doubt with a positive frame of always wanting to understand more, for, as you now recognize, understanding is love.
So negative feelings and all that self-doubt is just a wonderful opportunity to let it all out. It's an opportunity to let it go and release, to replace the doubt with a feeling of peace. So anytime you have self-doubt, just know it's a chance to let it all out, to, with a deep breath, let the fear go and replace it with a feeling of not doubt, but that you know everything's going to be just fine, everything's going to work out for the best, and know that everything's going to be okay because ultimately you are blessed. Just when you have self-doubt, it's good because you know it's just an opportunity to let it all go, and this doubt can be cleared. It can be something you can release. You can replace it with a feeling of confidence and peace. So, when in doubt, and you don't know what to do, allow this question to come right through. Is this a problem to solve or a hurt to heal? Is something I can handle with thoughts, or do I have to go with what I feel? Get clear, and what you'll find, the brain or the heart come together in the mind, and it will solve the problem, no matter what it might be, and you can make the doubt go away permanently. So when in doubt, relax and know the answer will come. Just ask and let it grow. Just ask and let it grow. It'll come through if you're in peace, and just let the doubt, with a deep breath, release.
And with this attitude of wonder, a good, positive, healthy sense of doubt, skepticism, perpetual interest and intrigue, bring that with you back to the waking state. Put a little smile on your face, feel the joy and the freedom and the peace in your nature. As you take a nice, big, deep breath, hold for a moment as you peak and as you exhale now. Open your eyes, wide awake and alert, back in the room, feeling absolutely great, better than before.
You know, we're all faced with doubt coming at us, too, or skepticism. For all my life, mostly, I've taught people how to read real fast, and I say anybody can read. Most anybody can read 2, 3, 4 times faster. And people say, well, I doubt that, or I don't know if I can do it, or I'm skeptical. This is healthy. Doubt like that, skepticism, blind faith, just closed-minded blind faith is really a bad idea. Just believing something or just disbelieving it. Blind faith or closed-mindedness, those two ends are not healthy. Healthy skepticism, healthy doubt, but when you let the doubt make you curious, like, I wonder if it's true, instead of making the doubt make you feel like, well, it's not even worth looking into because it probably won't work. You can take doubt, spin it positively, like, wow, that makes me interested. I wonder if it's true or not. Or you can spin doubt positively, like, well, I'll never be good enough. So it's not the doubt. It's what you do with the doubt. Have no doubt. It's your feelings that count.
Thanks for being with us. Join us next week as we continue with our premium audio personal empowerment series, Finding Yourself in Paradise. Thanks for being with us. Be sure and tell your friends. You can even forward the newsletter with a little link down at the bottom. And when you log in to FocusedPassion.com, you can use the Send One to a Friend gadget too, especially if you find a program like this or another you've heard recently that reminds you of somebody that you know, and you're thinking, boy, I wish so-and-so could hear this program. Well, you can send it to them absolutely free as a subscriber and a sustainer to FocusedPassion.com. So mahalo. Thanks a lot for that. As always, be gentle, love life, and take care of each other. For Steve Snyder, this is Michael Benner. Aloha from Maui, Hawaii.